Cop new tech, sign a check.
Welcome back to episode 8 of Breaking Barriers, and this week I'm joined by the co-founder of the brilliant I Think She's Offside podcast, Lipa Nessa. How's it going?
I love that introduction. I'm very well, thank you.
Are you going to plug
How are you?
your main podcast and be like, yes, the Breaking Barriers podcast shouted us out, so we're going to return the favour?
I mean, a shout out, any opportunity to get us out there. I mean, I'm not complaining.
Well, yeah, you guys have been doing a lot of good work there, but you mentioned before when we were chatting that you're going to sort of be going on a bit of a break.
Yeah, so we've gone off on a break for a couple of months now. I think since COVID started, myself and my other co-host, we've just got so much work to do. We're sort of developing ourselves and allowing for progression to occur that way. So, like, I mean, the podcast is great, but we just don't want to put out any odd, like, conversations, and we want our content to be real good content, not just anything, so with that in mind, we decided to take a break. And when this pandemic hit women's sports, it really hit women's sports. So I mean, when we took that break, we did put our future in perspective and thought, there's no women's sport, what are we going to talk about? So we decided, you know what, let's take a break. Let's think about what's next. And then let's go from there. So hopefully next year, 2021, we will be back.
Hopefully. And on that note, I think it's always good to kind of start off these conversations with you kind of talking about your journey into sports and into podcasting and even into the job you have now. Can you give us a little insight?
Where did I start with sports? I mean, I've always liked sports. Like, it's always been a part of my life. But I think when it's solely to do with football. I started when I was 5, when my parents bought me a character football. I'm not quite sure if you're familiar with the cartoon called Tweenies from CBeebies.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was printed all over this ball, and I kid you not, I went to sleep with it. It sat on the dining room table whilst I was eating. It was my best friend. And yeah, whilst I was sort of learning how to play football, I was also a gymnast. I participated in karate, netball, basically most sports, but I was only about like 4, 5, 6, and 7 whilst I was doing all of those. I participated in several sports throughout my schooling life. Literally every single after school club to do with sports, I was in it. Or I made sure there was something that I was interested in after school that took place. If it wasn't there, I would go and speak to someone in charge, someone in charge of like the after school clubs or the sports department, and say, do you know what, we need something there. And I was very vocal from a young age, and I think that allowed me to delve deeper into the sporting scene, because you don't see a lot of people like you and I in the industry. So I thought, do you know what, let's give it a go. And I sort of was, it was more a rebellious stance than I want to change something. I just wanted to defy the norms of my community and sort of just jump head first and see where it takes me. So that's sort of how it started.
And from there, on, doing way more in terms of the podcast, and you're also a member for the Youth Sports Trust and the FA as well.
Yeah, so I mean, I went to university in London, and from a small town going into the big city, and people say it's a city of dreams, that cliche line. And I thought, you know what, this is not a city of dreams. And then one day I'm sitting at my desk and I'm looking out and I see a football playing field and people are training on that. I'm thinking, what makes me different? What makes me different from all those people playing right now? What makes me different from everyone else that's in my university right now? And I sort of like manifested like a quote, and it goes like this: I'm going to change the world with a hijab on my head and a ball at my feet. And I kid you not, when I made this quote, I thought, it's not going to go anywhere. I'm not going to actually do anything with it. I'm not going to take the steps in order to make that a reality. However, I was. And I don't know how, but every single sporting event there was, networking events, you know, debating events, I was there. And I was always sort of a regular face, but I was quite introverted because it was a new environment for me. I didn't really know how to network, but I self-taught myself, made my business cards, went there and started to build on my network. And that's sort of how everything occurred. I built on my network, started to talk to people that looked like me that were in sports, which I never knew about in my small town. So that was great. And then one day, I was invited to a screening of a movie by the Mayor of London. So I went there quite curious. It was a sports movie. And then there's this bubbly girl that's run up late to this screening, and I'm thinking, wow, she has cut it short. She introduces herself, and of course it's my co-host Fadumo. And she's so bubbly. I'm like, she's crazy, but I love this. She's so different. And then since that day onwards, we started to speak, and then we sort of lost track of speaking, but we kept on bumping into each other at these sporting events. And we had so much in our minds that was so similar that we decided after a Kick It Out event at Wembley Stadium, we'd do something about all these ideas. So we sat down in a coffee shop for about like 2 hours. I don't know how many drinks we had, but we had a couple of hot chocolates, a couple of cups of teas, and yeah, we decided we're going to make a podcast called I Think She's Offside. Took us a couple of months, but after the Men's World Cup, we decided to go ahead and, you know, go for it. But whilst myself and Faduma were speaking, she decided that I was suitable for this role at the Youth Sport Trust, and that was to sit on the youth board. She's like, Lipa, do it, you know, you'll be great for it. And I was like, no, I don't want to do it, you know, there's other people that are better qualified than I am. And that was my mistake. I didn't really understand my value in the scene. And I think it's great to be humble, but sometimes own your seat that you sit in, which I didn't understand until later on. So I took a chance and sort of, yeah, I got peer pressured nicely into going for the role, and I got it. And then, yeah, it's completely the role that I want to be in. I wanted to see sports from a policy point of view, and that definitely gives me that. And then a couple of years later, myself and Faduma are now also ambassadors of the trust. So, I mean, from not knowing who the trust were to now being an ambassador is such a leap. And then, I mean, from there, the Youth Sport Trust has just allowed me to grow and be who I am today. And the roles that I've been introduced to throughout the years have allowed me to build on skills that I've never really experienced before, which has allowed me to delve deeper into roles that I wouldn't sort of touch before. And that's one of a podcast, and also being an innovation lead for the FA, National Youth Council. So, I mean, I would have never had that opportunity to be confident enough to apply for those opportunities. And also being a grassroots coach, you have to be somewhat of an extrovert to do that. And I mean, since building on my skills, I've actually thought that I'm becoming more of an extrovert, like an introverted extrovert, but I'm still an extrovert, right? So yeah, it's just watching myself grow and thinking, what can I do next?
You talk a lot.
Sorry?
You talk a lot of this kind of energies to want to push and rebel and drive. And do you think that someone who's like that, obviously that has given you the opportunities to make opportunities for yourself, but what would you say for girls who aren't confident of pushing themselves and really challenging the status quo and challenging concepts to get into new regimes and schemes?
I mean, one misconception everyone has about me is I'm very extroverted, which I'm not. It depends on where I am. It really depends on my company. But yeah, I was very introverted when I was younger. And I have this 3-second rule. If you want to speak to someone that's in the same room as you, a networking event, you have 3 seconds. If after 3 seconds you're still thinking about it, you go and speak to them. If it's an opportunity, you wait 5 seconds, and after that 5 seconds, you have to apply for it. That's a rule that I've sort of stapled into my life, and it's just always been there. And it's not about only speaking to people face to face whilst networking. It's also networking online, which is what we're doing now due to the circumstances we live in. So LinkedIn is a great place to sort of do that. So is Twitter, and that's how we met. So I mean, it's a great place to meet new people from different walks of life. And I mean, if you really do want to create change and really want to push yourself, just go for it. You have to just push yourself out there. And if you don't, well, the only person that's missing out is yourself. Now, there are several videos on YouTube, you know, I mean, we have technology at our fingertips. If you want to learn a new skill, it's literally at your fingertips. But at the same time, if you're in school, I'm sure your careers advisors, your teachers will be able to assist you on this. I'm sure if you have a little chat with them, they'll be able to advise you or direct you to the right places. If you're over 18, definitely check out event pages. Sign up for any events that are going about. Even if it doesn't really interest you or you don't really know what it's about, go for it. If you know there's a speaker there that you want to speak to, go for it, because that's how my journey started. I went to a banking speech. I'm rubbish at numbers. Like, it's one of my weaknesses. And I was in a room full of bankers, financial directors, but there was someone on the panel that I wanted to speak to. That's why I went there. And it's sort of like, nobody knows who you are. So it's their first impression of you. And those first few events that you go to, nobody knows who you are. So you could literally make yourself a different person. And then that sort of links into my story of when I went to university, I sort of became a different person. Different environments do get different parts of you out. And I definitely believe that me going to university, going to a big city, really defined my skill set.
Yeah, and just sort of as a sports activist, you mentioned kind of having to be a certain way, having to push yourselves. But given that you had so many opportunities, do you think, looking at things now, do you think all those opportunities are available to girls to come through and apply for things and get into schemes? Do you think those opportunities are becoming more easily available?
I mean, before COVID, yes, but I'm not quite sure about it now because I haven't been to any sporting events due to the current situations we live in. But I know there are organisations such as Kick It Out that have great schemes for just women as well. They have events that are just for women. That's how myself and Fadima came up with the podcast. And it's sort of understanding there's opportunities out there. The only thing you have to do is go and find them. Go on Twitter, be quite active on there and see what's there. Follow pages that post events. And after, hopefully soon, when this is blown over, I mean, there will be a lot of events going on due to a backlog of them being stopped. So I mean, yeah, there are a lot of events going on online now. So there's conferences online. So it's sort of, again, going out there, looking for them and seeing which one appeals to you and then going for it. I'm not only speaking from a sports point of view, I'm speaking from every sector, because there's conferences about business, about politics, about policy. There's so many stuff out there right now, and people want young people to go and participate in this. And especially because it's online, it's easily accessible. So, I mean, from the comfort of your home, you could be networking with great, inspiring people.
There's really that energy to always understand that actually no matter what goes on in your life and what's going on now currently in the world, there are ways to adapt and grow and really to take opportunities any sort of way. So would you say that sort of kind of takeaway message for anyone who's listening that might be wanting to know from you, how to really sort of make it in this industry and in business in general?
Honestly, like I feel like I'm repeating myself, but if I didn't push myself when I was 18 to make a business card, make myself somewhat presentable, making sure that my social media is pretty clean, clean meaning I'm not posting anything that shouldn't be on there, making sure if a client was to look at my social media, there wouldn't be anything to sort of hinder our relationship. So it's all about going back to your social media, cleaning it out, seeing what can still stay there and what shouldn't really be there. So deleting all of the stuff that's unnecessary, making yourself a business profile, making yourself look good online and offline. And I mean, if you do want to build on those relationships, DM people. There are a lot of people out there that will want to help, that will want to be a part of your journey. And I mean, hey, there's a lot of time out there now because everything's online. So keep on knocking on those doors, and yeah, keep on doing you. Do not try to change yourself to fit a certain norm. And that's something that I tried to do earlier on, but it didn't work for me. So I've just gone back to who I am, and being my authentic self is what attracts people to me. So just stay true to yourself and just go for it.
And finally, to kind of tie up everything we've talked about, for you, what does the future look like? You know, what does the future look like for Lipa?
I mean, going back on my quote, I really want to make that a reality. Um, Maybe in sports policy, so somewhere there. I mean, my ultimate dream is to speak at the United Nations, and I'm speaking this into existence. So if it doesn't happen, someone else could hopefully take it. You know, I don't know how long I have on Earth, but like, I mean, the time I'm assuming I have, I want that to become a reality. And if it doesn't become a reality, then hopefully someone else will take it on and be like, do you know what? I'm going to speak at the United Nations, and I'm going to change X, Y, and Z, and make sport a better place for everyone, inclusive to everyone, and allow sports to be a communication through people. So one thing I'm passionate about is refugees, and sports being that communication pathway for refugees and local people. So that's one thing that I'm very passionate about. But hopefully, I don't actually know where the future will take me. If you asked me 5 years ago where I would be today, I'd probably say I would be a PE teacher. But I mean, look at me now, I'm nowhere near a PE teacher. But it's all about your journey and the waves you ride. Just go with the flow, but make sure you somehow have got a plan. And it's okay for plan changes, because my plan has changed. My job title has always changed and moved around every so often. So that's okay. And it's very hard out there, so don't be too tough on yourself.
Well, you guys heard it here first. If you don't see Lipa at the UN speaking for all women in the sport with a hijab on and a ball at her feet, then what can go right, really? But yeah, so it's been great having you here on the pod. Can you tell us where we can find you online across your social media channels?
Thank you for having me. So my social platforms are Lipa, Lipa _ Nessa, Nessa. That's both on Twitter and Instagram. And on LinkedIn, it's Lipa Nessa, so just my first name and surname. And She Is Offside is, as I've just said, she is, and then Offside, all together on Instagram and Twitter, and on iTunes and Spotify.
Well, thank you for coming on, and hopefully we will see you and your amazing pod sometime in the next year or so.
Hopefully. Thank you for having me.